today I am bringing to you a video that has been highly requested. It is a Disneyland versus Disney World Disney College program. So all the information in this video is just from what I personally know from my Walt Disney World College program and from my Disneyland College program. So some of the information may be outdated. I do try to keep up on everything that changes within the programs. But honestly, it is incredibly hard to keep up because it's like every single season something changes. And I do try to stay updated within the Disney College program Facebook groups, but sometimes I just can't because there's just so much that goes on. So I do apologize in advance if some of this information is outdated or some of it has changed. I do highly recommend joining one of the Facebook groups. It's usually under Disney College program, whether it's fall or spring, and then the year you are applying. And you will usually find a few groups. I recommend joining the group that has the most members in it because that would be the one that has the most information. If you are applying for Disneyland, there is usually a Disneyland College program group, and if you're applying for Disney World, there's usually a Disney World one. But if you're applying to both, there's usually one main group that you can always join. But for me personally, I join them all because I'm like, I need to know information from this group and this group, so I'm just gonna join them all. So I don't want to make this video I liked this program better than this program. I'm just trying to share with you guys what I've learned from both programs, just to give you guys an idea of which one you may want to apply for. Alright, so let's talk about living in the Disney College program. So both Disneyland and Disney World offers housing. Now you don't have to live in the housing that is offered, you can live off-site. So with Disney World there are 4 different complexes, and with Disneyland there is only one. And that means with the Disneyland College program it is much, much smaller than the Disney World because there's only one housing offered. So with the Disney World College program, there are 4 different housing complexes, and depending on which housing complex you choose to live in or are placed in is how much rent you are going to pay. So I am logged in here on the official Disney College program website, and down at the bottom they actually list the prices for housing. Now with each season, the prices kind of start to go up, so you kind of want to just stay updated on this website here so you can kind of get an idea of how much you're going to pay per week. So as of right now, for Chatham Square, you're going to pay between $99 and $126. Now they get that price based on the complex you decide to live in, how many roommates you have, and how many bedrooms there are. So for example, when I lived in Chatham Square in a 2-bedroom, 6-person apartment, I was only paying $76 a week. Now from the sounds of it, with this price here, you are paying $99 for that same room, which is a bit expensive considering 3 years ago I was only paying $76, which back then I thought was a lot. So this website is great for any information that you may have on the Disney World College program as well as the Disneyland College program. So let's head over to Disneyland's website. So it is the same website, but it is a little bit different for the Disneyland College program because it's a much different program. What the website here actually doesn't list the price of what you will be paying for Carnegie Plaza. So since I just recently did the college program for Disneyland, I was paying $149.50 per week for a 2-bedroom, 5-person apartment. Now the difference with Disneyland and Disney World is that with Disneyland, the $149.50 is a flat rate that every person in the college program pays. It doesn't matter if you're living in the studio apartment or if you're living in a 3-bedroom apartment. Everyone in Disneyland is paying the flat rate. Another thing that is really great about the website is it lists on here everything that is provided in each apartment. So if you go on the website here, it'll tell you exactly what are going to be in the kitchen. So that way you don't have to bring extra stuff. So it isn't just Disneyland that offers that same feature. It's also the Disney World website as well. So if you head over there, it'll tell you exactly what you will expect in each apartment. So to kind of give you an idea of what you should bring and what you shouldn't bring. All right, so let's moving on to the earning with the Disney College Program. So it is a paid internship. Now, it isn't the greatest paying internship because it is an internship. You will be paid minimum wage for Florida and for California. Now, depending on your role or where you are located, you may actually get a little premium pay. So, for example, while I was in Disneyland, because I was placed specifically in Disneyland, I did get a 50-cent premium raise. Yay! And the same thing goes for Disney World. I believe at the time in Magic Kingdom, it was a 50-cent premium raise for working in Magic Kingdom. And while I was in Hollywood Studios, because I worked outside in ODV, I did receive a 50-cent premium for doing that. So let's start with Disney World and working there. So one thing that I really noticed with Disney World was the amount of hours you are scheduled. Because it is a lot bigger and there are a lot more people there, that means you are going to work a lot more. On average, I was working 40 to 60 hours a week. It was very, very unusual to be scheduled under 40 hours. So that meant there were a lot of overtime opportunities, which was great because of the money, but at the same time, you were kind of exhausted all the time. So another thing that was really great about the Disney World College Program was the fact that you could trade shifts and give away shifts super, super easy. Now I know there's been a hopefully temporary thing put in place for the college program where you are no longer allowed to give away your shifts. You are allowed to trade shifts, but you are no longer allowed to give away shifts. Now, this policy has actually been implemented in Disneyland for a couple years, and it's not solely just for college program. It's actually resort-wide, which kind of sucks. It's really a sucky policy, I personally think. But once I spoke to my managers in Disneyland on why the policy was put into place, it kind of made a little bit more sense. For Disney World, the policy was put into place because there was a lot of issues with the college programmers doing the program, receiving the benefits of being a cast member, but not working. They would just give away all their shifts and just play. So they kind of just put this into place to resolve that issue. Now, when I talked to my managers in Disneyland on why they did this, it was actually the opposite with why they did it. It was the full-timers within Disneyland that were doing it. They were receiving the full-time benefit, full-time hours, but they were only working 1 or 2 days a week. So to prevent that from happening, they just put a whole thing across the board of you can no longer give away your shifts. Sorry, this is a bit long on the whole shift trading thing, but now with that into place, it is a bit harder to get specific days off when you don't request them off. That was one thing that I really loved about my Disney World College Program is if, say, Annie, for example, had a Thursday off and I worked that Thursday, I could easily just give that shift away and go do something with her. So that having that in place was really nice. But I do also understand why they put this new policy into place, but at the same time, for the good, hardworking cast members, it does suck for them. So one thing about the Disneyland College Program that I really noticed was the hours being scheduled there. Now, I don't know if it was just the time of year I was working or what it was, but I never was scheduled more than 34 hours in a week. That was if I was lucky. On average, I was getting about 29 to 32 hours a week. And if you do the math, after I get my paycheck, you aren't left with very much after they take rent out. So that was one of the biggest struggles with the Disneyland program was I just didn't have money. I was constantly touching my savings, which I just hate doing. I like having a huge savings. So the fact that I kept having to transfer money over just because I didn't make enough that week was kind of hard for me to do. One thing I really noticed with the Disneyland College program is they do not like to give out overtime. The only time that I saw people getting overtime was if it was absolutely mandatory, which was a completely different experience for me as opposed to Disney World, where I was scheduled 12-hour shifts just daily. So for me, I was just racking up the overtime, and then here in Disneyland, they're just like, no, no one gets overtime, no one's going over 40 hours this week. Alright, so let's get to our last section, which is the learning part of the Disney College program. So if you go on to the Disney World College program site and go under the Education tab, then click on to Online Course Registration, then scroll down to Course Registration, it'll actually open up a dorms site. So on this site, it'll tell you about every single course, what type of course it is, what it's about, and whether or not you receive college credit for it. So they actually break it up into the seminar series, the professional development studies, and the collegiate courses. So there are 7 seminar classes. So the difference between a seminar class and a collegiate class is a seminar you do not receive college credit for, and they're usually not as long as the collegiate courses. There are 6 collegiate courses offered. Now with the collegiate courses, depending on your school, you can actually receive college credit for completing the class. Now for me and my school is kind of lame and is like, no, we don't accept that. So if you just go and talk to your counselor or advisor, whoever you talk to at school, just ask them if your school recognizes the Disney College program and if you can receive college credit for it, because I think that's pretty cool. So then we can head over to the Disney Professional Studies. Now with these 2 that are offered, you actually have to be that specific major in order to just sign up for those classes. So a couple things to keep in mind when doing the Disney World College program is the classes there are optional, which means you do not have to sign up if you don't want to, because some of the college programmers there are still full-time students. And that leads me to my next thing that is nice about the Disney World program is the fact that they offer distance learning. So what that means is if, say for example, you are taking online classes through your university, the Disney World College program will actually set up classes where they can do proctoring. So if you have to take a final or something, you will have a full room to yourself where it's peace and quiet, and you don't have to worry about roommates coming in or anyone interrupting you. One thing that is really nice about the Disney World College program is the fact that classes are actually held within the housing complexes. So that was really convenient when I was taking my Disney Heritage class and it was in Chatham. I just had to walk 3 minutes to class and I was there. I didn't have to drive anywhere, which was super, super nice. The biggest downside about the classes offered in Disney World is the fact that they fill up super, super fast. Depending on the class, there's usually about 20 to 40 students per class, and they can only offer the classes a few times a week. You aren't guaranteed to actually get into one of the classes, especially the really popular classes that everyone wants to take. It is really, really, really hard. For example, I remember being at work and I wasn't off until 12:30, but registration for classes was opening at midnight. So what I did was about 5 minutes before registration was opening up, I took a bathroom break just so I could sign up for classes. That's how serious it is for signing up. All right, so let's move on to the Disneyland classes. So on the same website where the Disney World classes are, down at the bottom you can actually find the Disneyland College program classes. So because Disneyland is much smaller, there are very limited classes offered. So Disneyland does offer 2 collegiate courses And right now they're offering 3 seminar courses. So one thing about the Disneyland College program is because housing is so small, they have to hold the classes elsewhere. So that means you kind of need to have a car or make some friends in order to get to classes. So for my class, for example, was actually held over at the Disneyland Hotel. They were held in different conference rooms. Each week it was a little bit different. For some of the other classes, they were actually held over at TDA, which is the Team Disney Anaheim, and that's actually where everyone has traditions. So for the Disneyland program, there are actually kind of 2 downsides with the learning part, which for you, it may be something that is great if that's what you're looking for, but for someone like myself who during the time of my college program in Disneyland, I was a full-time student, it made things really, really difficult. So one of the downsides is the fact that classes are mandatory. And when I mean mandatory, it's not signing up for a class and not going, it's you actually have to go, and if you miss more than 3 classes, you are actually be kicked out of the college program. That is how serious they take it in Disneyland. So that was a struggle for me, considering classes for me were Monday, 8 a.m., 8 to 12:30, and it was just really difficult for me considering I always worked weekends. So that means on Sunday nights I was closing, I wasn't getting home till 2, 3 in the morning, getting a couple hours of sleep before getting up and having to go take a class for 4 hours. Another downside was the fact that Disneyland didn't offer the distance learning. So with distance learning not being offered there, it did make things quite difficult if you plan on being a student while doing the college program. That was one thing I really didn't know when applying, with the fact that classes were mandatory and there was no distance learning for me. So that meant that they weren't going to work with me just because I was a full-time student. So yeah, even though that was a downside for me personally, for others, they really did enjoy the fact that classes were mandatory because that meant that they actually got to take the classes offered. But again, classes do fill up quickly because there are only a few classes to choose from. You may not be placed in the class you 100% enjoy. It was a bit hard for some because here they are forced into a class they don't want to attend, but if they don't attend, they are cut from the college program. So for me, that was just really difficult and something that I wish I would have known before applying for the college program. But there really isn't anything online that I personally have seen where it says classes are mandatory, and if I had known that, I probably would have held off on doing another college program right now and probably would have waited until closer to my graduation date. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I did try to keep as much information up to date as possible, but again, things are constantly changing. So if you need any information on the college program, again, join a Facebook group, go to one of the websites for the college program. I'll put everything in the description box so that way people can stay updated. If you liked this video, make sure to give a big thumbs up, and in the comments down below, let me know if any of this information is inaccurate or if anything has changed, because honestly, next month things could change. Things are going to change 6 months, a year, a couple years from now. So make sure to kind of keep commenting and updating everyone else on the changes because that would be super, super helpful. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Bye!